All right, let's see if this works. Okay, can everybody see my ZBrush screen? Hello, everybody. I can see your chats, and we should be live now. All right, so welcome to my stream. This is the first of many, and my goal is to do a project and finish it in 8 streams. So this would be the first one. And in this one, what we're going to do is start out with creating a kind of the initial shape, doing the ideation in ZBrush, and then taking it to the next stage, hopefully. So we have about 2 hours to go, and let's get started. Just real quick, this is going to be more hard surface, even though we're going to have some organic stuff, but it's going to be mostly hard surface. Probably going to be making a mech here, and also I am using a customized UI for ZBrush, and people always ask me if I can if I can share my UI, and I usually don't because I change it all the time. Sorry, I need to respond to something here real quick. Okay, so what we're going to do here is my UI is all done in hotkeys. So, for example, I have one menu that pops up over here. So I've got some custom menus here, and I pop them up wherever I am. So here's one, here's another, and this is going to be more of a intermediate to advanced stream. I'll be more than happy to answer questions for you, but if you feel that I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. Or if there's anything that you see that you can't understand, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to repeat it or go back and undo it. All right, so I start every scene with this character right here, which is just a basic, really simple, about 800 poly man. And I could probably reduce this a lot more if I didn't have fingers here, but I usually just have this around for scale. And I usually, whatever I'm making, I usually kind of have people in it if it is something that has exists in a world where people are in it. So here I have another subtool, which is just basically polymesh, and what I'm going to do is initialize that as a Q cube here. And so, oops, not the guy, but the polymesh. And so here, he's basically, I'll go ahead and hide the guy for now. We don't really need to see him at this point. But basically just created a cube like this. And then what I'm going to do is also append a ZSphere. And ZSpheres are probably one of the most powerful capabilities of ZBrush. And they are really useful in so many ways. So what I'm going to do here is just go in and let me turn on my symmetry here. So I'm going to activate X symmetry. Notice again, I just pulled up my menu here. The same thing, of course, is available under transform and over here, activate symmetry. So now that I have my symmetry on, I want to go into draw mode in the ZSphere and sure symmetry is activated here too, and go ahead and start drawing some Z-spheres. So Z-spheres are really good to making rigs of shapes and stuff. So here I'm just basically starting out with just a really simple Z-sphere rig. And then the other thing is if I press the A key, it turns it into a mesh, but it turns it into this dense mesh, which is not what I really want. So here I'm going to go into adaptive skin. And by the way, when I'm pressing A, I'm basically clicking this preview button, right? So that's the same exact thing as when I press A, I get that. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and reduce the Dynamesh density resolution down to 0. So now I'm getting this, which is a really simple shape. And I might want to dumb that down even further to just get some very basic geometry. Okay, so here I go. I've got my central Z-sphere and I've got two other Z-spheres over here. And what I want to do is I want to grow this out into some sort of a humanoid looking mech. What I could do here is usually what I do is I just take these all the way out. And when you go to draw, when you press Q or you are in draw mode over here, you can place these spheres in the middle. So I'm assuming that first I'm going to go now into move mode. So I'm pressing W and actually let me see if there's anything going on here in the chat. Are you going to do hard surface? Yes, I am. If so, do you recommend hard surface modeling with panel loops? Absolutely. Panel loops are really awesome. But before we get into any panel loops or anything like that, I usually, what I recommend is if you kind of want to get an understanding of how I work, a good thing to watch is I've done a Gnomon talk, and I think the video is up on YouTube on the Gnomon channel, so you can go in and watch that. I usually get the basic shapes ironed out first before I get into details, and panel loops are really useful when I start putting in those details. And we will definitely use panel loops at some point in the 8 weeks that I will be working on this project. But for now, I'm going to use the really amazing and powerful capabilities of ZSpheres. And so here, I'm figuring out that this is basically a shoulder length. And then I'm going to go back to draw mode and draw another Z-sphere here. And this is going to be the arm. And I usually move that all the way to where the arm is going to end. And again, here I'm being really rough. Of course, I'm going to be editing these things later on. And I can go ahead and put in elbows and all that other stuff later. Hands I don't usually do with Z-spheres. I can, but I'm just not going to do that yet. And and also I probably want to grow out this Z-sphere here over here bigger. So again, I'm going to scale, which is the E key, and then making that a little bit bigger, and then W to move and moving these Z-spheres out so to here. And then notice that I do have symmetry on, and so when I go to draw, as I move closer to the center, it snaps, which is really nice. And so I'm going to draw a center Z-sphere here. That's a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be, maybe about that big, and move that down over to here. All right, so with that done, I wanted to show you the trick I'm going to be doing. This is kind of a really useful thing that I figured out a while ago, and I've been using it a lot, and it's really helpful. And that is that the Z-sphere rig is really nice to look at when you're creating stuff, but it's not very hard surfacey, not unless you're going to do kind of a circular model. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and use my subtool here that I made, this Polymesh 3D, and let me just go ahead and click solo on so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take this cube that I have over here, and I'm going to modify it just a little bit, make it a bit wider, and that's all I'm going to do. I should make it wider in the Z-axis, so like that. Right, or well, I think maybe the x-axis. So just make it wider like this. So it's just basically a simple cube that I made wider. It's a 2x2, and then I'm going to shrink this down a bit and shrink this down a bit. So I'm basically just creating a shape here. And what I want to do with this shape is I want to place that shape where the Z-spheres are connecting. So this is kind of an older ZBrush technique, and I haven't seen too many people use it, but it's super, super useful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go back to Adaptive Skin here, right? So back in the Adaptive Skin menu, and the Adaptive Skin menu is in the Tool menu, so our palette, I guess I should use the right terminology. So this sub-palette here, and then what I'm going to do is use Classic Skinning, so turn that on. And then in the classic skinning, if I go to move, so if I'm in the move option, not draw, but move, what I can do is click on any one of these joints and then say insert local mesh. And then I'm going to insert that mesh. Now the thing is that I can't do it because it is part of this subtool tree. So what I need to do is just select this and copy it. And then just go to an empty Polymesh 3D and paste it there. I don't need this top one. I'll delete that one. So now I have just this as its own subtool, like so. And let me turn the floor on real quick to see if I have it oriented correctly, and I do. So we'll go back here to where we were, and back here to this one. Look at that. So here I'm making this, but it's not in the right orientation. Easy enough to fix. So I'll just go to move here and move this down to here and move this down to here. So now I know that I'm in the right direction. All right, let's turn that floor off and let's go back to where we were earlier, which is basically going into adaptive skin and choosing classic skinning. Choosing W for move, choosing the place we want to replace this ZSphere section, and we're going to insert a local mesh, and this is going to be the local mesh. Oops, I think I chose the wrong one. It's going to be insert connector mesh, and this one. So now we have, instead of that ZSphere chain, we have that cube. So now if I move this sphere around, like so, what I'm doing is I'm basically changing the size of what is connecting to it. So I'm going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to do it over this one. So insert connector mesh again and insert this piece. So now notice here that that this piece over here is replaced now with that as well. And then lastly, let's just go ahead and replace this middle one. So here, insert connector mesh, and there's that. So now basically I have a ZSphere rig, but what I'm doing with it is when I move these things around, I'm basically just changing the size of these rectangles here. And if I want to make this rectangle thicker, if I don't like this one, it's too thin, I can always go back to that polymesh here and make it a little bit thicker. Maybe like so. I think that's a bit too much. Maybe like about there. And then I can go right back into here and do the same thing over again. So again, go to move mode, select the middle one here, go to adaptive skin, insert connector mesh in this one. So now it's a little bit thicker. And I kind of like it. I could have used a square shape if I wanted to, and this the horizontal and the vertical would be the same. But I get an interesting variation when I make it a bit thinner. So here we go. What's really nice now is that if I want to break this into two, I just go back into draw mode and I just drop in another ZSphere. And when I press W here, I can move this around. So as I am building my mech up, I'm basically getting these pieces, and then I can take these pieces and work on them, and we'll see that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and grow this out into a full person. So here we can go ahead and go back into draw mode and draw another ZSphere over here, right? And so now as I'm adding the new ones, notice that they are coming in with that connector already, so I don't have to keep doing that over and over again. And again, I want to maybe give this a little bit of a gesture. So let me turn perspective off here. And so if I want to give this a little bit of a gesture, I can move this forward, move this back like so. And so maybe this is going to be the torso right here. And then this is going to be, let's go ahead and make some legs. So again, when I press W here, I can grow, or sorry, press Q to draw, I can grow out maybe some hips here. And again, move that out. I can actually just go all the way out down to where the legs are going to be. So we're basically kind of doing a stick figure, but pretty soon this is going to get really detailed. So maybe do that like so, and then maybe move down to here. And bring this over like so. All right, so really simple kind of shapes here. I'm just going for a general look. And again, at any point in time, I can bring up the human being, which should be here somewhere. Let's turn solo off. Look at how big the ZSphere rig is compared to the human being. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down. So I'm going to do that with Unify here. So now they're almost the same shape. I don't need to see this thing. Right, so now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to match the proportions to my guy here. So maybe move these ones down, move this one down to over here. Let me turn transparency on so we can see this thing inside. Okay, so move this over down into here, move this up into maybe the tip of the toe. right? So that, again, I don't have to keep resizing things. I can just kind of choose this as kind of the end piece, and then everything will be sized accordingly. And then I'll move this one down to where the hips are. That's good. And then let's go ahead and do these shoulders. These to the tip of the shoulders. And usually with mechs, I like to bring the shoulders and break them out this way. So I kind of have these spheres be where the scapula in the back is going to be. So I'll move that back here. So this is kind of where the scapula is, and then I bring it out from there. So here I already kind of shot myself in the foot. By the way, if you want to delete one of these, you can. So by putting this middle one in too soon, I kind of made more work for myself. So to delete one of these Z-spheres, if you hold down, I think it's the Control key if you're in draw mode. Nope, it's the Alt key, and then click on it, then that gets rid of that Z-sphere. So the reason why I did that is because I just want to move this tip over to where kind of the tip of the hands are, and then just go into draw mode and draw where the wrist would be, maybe move that over, and then draw where the elbow would be right here, and move that over to here. Right, and then maybe start doing the feet here. So go into draw mode again. So all I'm doing is hitting Q, W, E, R, and I usually keep my hands in the right of the keyboard where all the hotkeys are, and just use those hotkeys to place things where I want them to be. All right, so we've got foot going here. Maybe I'll break the foot into two pieces, but not just yet. Again, you want to keep it as simple as possible earlier on to get the gesture that you want. So here I'm going to go to Q again to draw and put in a knee. Move that over to get a little bit of that gesture going, like so. And again, the orientation of these doesn't matter because at any point in time I can go ahead and rotate them. So with the R key, for rotate, you can rotate these any way you want. So if I want these legs to kind of go this way, I can do that, and then maybe move this over to here and move this tip back over to where the foot is. And I'm constantly moving around my object, which is always a good idea. All right, so I think this is a good time to kind of take a look at the chat and see what you guys are saying. Evening, how's it going? Let's see. Oh man, they put you on the schedule? All right. Yeah, I am on the schedule. I should be. All right. So somebody loves ZSpheres. I share your passion. Cool. So yeah, if you guys have questions, just ask them. Again, for those of you that are just joining, what we're doing here is we're just basically starting to build a robotic mech with a person inside, kind of getting maybe some human proportions to start out with, and then I'm going to, of course, go ahead and completely obliterate that. So with the arms here, what I like to do, and I'll go ahead and do it now, is just go ahead and put in a sphere here, and then move this one up over to here. And so I kind of have this type of thing going on. So here's where the scapula is, and then here is where kind of the top of the arm is, and then there's this part. Move this back a little bit. All right, I think I'm getting something I like here. Maybe scale this one up a bit to here, move this one over to here. All right, it's looking good so far. And let's go ahead and add another Z-sphere on top here. So again, I go to draw mode. And notice here that from this point on, I don't know why it's doing two. I think maybe I should turn ghosting on so I can be inside. Here we go. Yep, so here I'm basically creating, and notice here it's not giving me those square shapes, which is fine. I can just move this up to maybe the tip of the head here, and go ahead and go back to move mode, select that middle part, and do that trick again where I go to adaptive skin, and insert connector mesh and insert one of these guys. So that's looking good. And then I want to turn this one around about 90 degrees. So let's see if that works. I think I could do it from up here. Nope, maybe from down here. Maybe not, which is fine. What I can do is I can just scale this top one down like so. Maybe bring it down to here, and then just add another Z-sphere on top. There we go. All right, so here we're just kind of building the inside part of the mech, I guess, the skeletal part, and move this forward, scale it down. And that's good for now, and then we'll add more as we continue. Now what I'm going to do here just for kicks is just go ahead and select this entire ZSphere rig here and duplicate it. So I've got two of them, and then with the second one I can go ahead and move it so that I have two different things interacting. So I'm going to turn off my guy here because I don't really need to see him anymore. And then I've got two ZSphere rigs that I'm manipulating here. And so I've got more pieces that I can move back and forth. And I might not use this one, but it's always good to kind of have two because maybe I want a front panel here and a back panel. All right. Hey, happy for stream. Thank you very much, A Cubed. And then Zero Soul, hello, Pixelogic, hello back. All right, cool. Fantastic. So here I've got the second one, which I'm going to hide for now. I'm just going to I'm going to focus on the first one that we started, and then just continue that on. So notice here that it's a little bit deceptive because I've got this sphere, which is the root sphere, showing, but I don't have any other sphere showing, which is fine. And then when I convert this into an adaptive skin, I'll get like a weird shape for this one, which I can go ahead and delete. And then after that, I can continue working with it. All right, so I have my basic shape here. I might want to add some few spine pieces here, so maybe add one here and one here. So now basically broken this up into two different spine pieces, like so. And what's really nice here is that if you click on a sphere and move it, it moves the entire chain underneath. So I can do some really interesting things. So here I'm working symmetrically, but once I'm done, I can go ahead and pose this guy asymmetrically. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll duplicate it so I have a copy to go back to. And so here, if I break symmetry, for example, I can go ahead and start posing this guy, right? Maybe not show this one, but I can start posing him, like let's say if he's walking, so I can move this leg forward, this leg back, like so, right? And then maybe move this arm back, and then move this arm forward. You can see very easily that I can pose my character as well. So this is a good way to kind of figure out a nice pose during maybe kind of give him a little bit of juxtaposition here, a contrapposto, like so. So you can see here that I can very easily start manipulating the rig and creating some really compelling poses. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just still going to work on the primary model, which I have over here. And this one I'll just kind of move up. And it's always good to organize your scenes. And what I usually do is, like, if I don't want my subtool list to get too busy, and by the way, I'm looking forward to getting the next version of ZBrush that's going to have groups that they teased at the ZBrush Summit. So when I have that, this might be an easier task. I can just create a work in progress. But for now, what I usually do is I just go ahead and copy things that I don't need. Like if I don't need this one, I'll copy it and paste it into another tool over here, and then when I save my project it'll be there, and then I can copy and paste it back in if I need it. Okay, so here we go. We're still kind of working on this one. Back to this. All right, let's look. Any questions? No questions so far. That's always a good thing. And let's move this forward. And oh, wait a minute, we're on the wrong one. Here we go. Yeah, it gets confusing once you get a lot. The other thing I also do is I like to initialize my cube because it creates these polygroups and they'll come in handy later on. All right, so I'm kind of liking some of the things going on here, but I might want to add a little bit of variation. So what I'm going to do is maybe scale some of these Z-spheres up and down. So maybe this one, scale it up a bit to give him bigger hips. And for the knees and the elbows, what I usually like to do is break it up into two. So I'm going to add another Z-sphere here and another Z-sphere here so that I have, for the knee, I have a whole other piece like this. So I can kind of create a more interesting gesture for the knee and the foot. And the foot I usually break into pieces too, but for now I think I'm good with what I have. All right, let's do this. And basically, a lot of the way these are organized, I kind of figure out from toys. So I have one of these guys here, which is, I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me bring it to the webcam. But it's from Toys or 1,000 Toys. And it really is a good way to kind of look at how articulated this is and then kind of try and match these types of joints in the mechs that I make. I also have this other model here, which I picked up when I was in Japan. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's also another mech type of a robot. And so I kind of look at how these joints are organized, and I do similar layouts for the rigs that I have here, and then I build them out into robots. Okay. So let's see here. I think I'm going to give this guy a little bit more of a gesture going down, and like so. Maybe move this one back a bit. And all right, so I'm kind of liking how this is going. Maybe give him kind of more of a gesture this way so he doesn't look so horizontal and vertical. And how old are you when you start with ZBrush? I started in 2005. So in 2005, I kind of figured out that a lot of amazing artists were doing some really cool stuff with ZBrush, and I got it then. And then I started learning it little by little, but then I took some classes, which really helped. I took some classes at Gnomon, and I've been using it since then. It's one of these things where the more you use it, the better you get at it, and I enjoy it immensely. So right now I'm in heaven working in ZBrush. Whenever I'm working in ZBrush, I'm really enjoying myself. I use a lot of other programs as well, but ZBrush is the one that kind of always gives me the most satisfaction because I get some amazing results very quickly. All right, so I don't need this one here. I'm going to delete it. All right, so that's looking good. I think that's a good start. Let's see if I can figure out some other things to do here. I'm kind of thinking I could do more with the arms over here. Yep, I inadvertently added another piece over here, which is kind of good. I guess I will keep it. And as far as the hands are concerned, I'm going to be okay with that. I'm not really going to do anything with the hands yet. Just kind of create these elbows, move it back, move this back. All right. The other thing that I'm not kind of liking is how flat this is. So I want to change the size of this a bit more to be that big, and then this one to be a bit bigger. So notice here that as I'm changing the size of the ZSphere, it's changing the whole chain, and I don't want it to do that. So I think there is a way to do it. If you hold down the control key, you can individually just resize that one ZSphere, which is kind of what I wanted to do. Move that down. And yeah, so all right, so now this is looking very human-like, and it's good. And now is where I go crazy and start making something interesting, because I don't really want a humanoid-looking model. I want something a lot more interesting than humanoid, because once you have a machine, you can kind of forego some of the limitations that humans have. So let's see here. I think I added an extra one here that I don't need. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. Here we go. All right. So now I'm going to get more interesting with this model and go ahead and start exaggerating some of the shapes. So the first thing I'd like to do is maybe make these legs a bit longer. So I'm again using W. Hopefully everybody's kind of keeping up with the things that I'm doing. Again, if you have questions, I'll be monitoring the chat. So please ask away. Don't be shy. Right, so that's kind of a more interesting, longer leg look here. And maybe I'll make this a bit bigger here. So again, going to scale. And you just need to make a few of these to kind of get the hang of it. So what I recommend is, if you're working on making this, if you kind of like this idea, do a few of these. The first few you'll probably be frustrated with, but you get pretty good with it pretty early on. All right, I think that's looking good here. I want to make this one a bit bigger, like so. And it looks like I just scaled the thing up. So let me mess with these proportions a bit. So I'm going to make these legs even longer. So go here and do this. This is something maybe I could also do when I didn't have so many links, so many ZSpheres to click on, because now when it's hard to kind of grab the ZSphere. You don't want to get too many of these going. I think you kind of have to limit yourself to a few. All right, so now that we have this type of thing happening, what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and go to Adaptive Skin. And again, click on Make Adaptive Skin. And what that'll do is it'll just create a new model for me. And this is what it looks like, which basically is those cubes arranged in the way I had them. Okay, so I still have that ZSphere rig, which I will keep. But then I have one of these guys, and I'm going to copy that shape, that subtool, and go ahead and paste it into my scene here. So I have all these in one place. So notice here that I mentioned earlier that I had that root Z-sphere and it put this kind of hemisphere for that. And I don't really want that. So I'm going to use Z-modeler to get rid of it. So the Z-modeler brush is BZM to get the Z-modeler brush. And I have it mapped to my 1 key. So I can very easily get to it. So when I press 1, it's the Z-modeler brush. When I press 2, it's the move brush. Okay, so when I go to 1 here, I'll go ahead and turn off symmetry for now. By the way, I'm not seeing the Facebook chats. Oh wow, let me go to my Facebook movie here and just make sure that if there's any chats going on there, I respond to the folks as well. Go to my Facebook movie here. This is going to create a bit of an echo. I'll fix it in a minute. Let me mute it. Here we go. All right, so it looks like we have some people here as well, starting soon. Hi from, wow, we got people from all over the world. I've got people from Peru, from Vietnam, from Ecuador, India. Amazing. All right, 28 people. Wow. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm monitoring the chat on Facebook too. I wasn't earlier, so if you have stuff to ask there, please do so as well. Okay, so coming back to where we were, I think we want to get rid of this. So again, if you hit the space bar here, what I want to do is delete a single poly or poly, not a single poly, but an island. So I'm going to delete this island. So it's all these shapes. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn symmetry back on. And at this point, I'm going to use the inflate brush. So I have it down here. By the way, usually what I do is I usually have most of my brushes in a menu that I created. So I have, if I hit my Alt B is what I have it mapped to, I get this menu, which is organized a little bit better for me than if I click over here, which has a lot more brushes. So I created my own menu for brushes, and usually wherever I am, I hit Alt B to get it. But I also have them down here when I teach or when I'm doing this webinar. It might be easier to show you those there. So now I've got the inflate brush, and what I'm going to do is start giving these pieces a little bit of volume. I'm also going to turn on topological here. So I have topological on so that whatever piece I'm on, that's the one I am inflating. Maybe I need to increase my intensity a bit here. And so now I'm basically taking those shapes and creating kind of more thicker shapes out of them based on what I want. So let me make my draw size a bit bigger. That's too big. By the way, draw size is over here, and it's the S key to get it. So here I'm just kind of making these. Yes, it is a customized interface, Kirai. I mentioned that at the beginning. I definitely highly recommend customizing the ZBrush interface. And if I look at the number of interfaces I have, and I save every one, I've got like hundreds of them. right? So I start out with one and then I change it, I keep changing it. People ask me for them, but if I give them my interface, it's going to be different later on. So what I recommend is there are plenty of really good videos on there, and if you guys are interested, I might even do one on how to customize your interface or how I've done mine. But it's all, if you're using ZBrush, you can save so much time by creating your own custom interface. Customized to the way you work, not the way somebody else works. You can always get somebody else's interface, but I always find that if you get somebody else's interface, then you're also adopting their workflow and maybe you have a better workflow, right? So, and it's so easy to use. And people complain about the ZBrush interface, and I always kind of laugh when they do, because you can always make it your own. And I haven't seen this level of customizability in any other program. So, kudos to Pixelogic for giving us that capability. All right, so now I've got kind of a sausagey looking version of what I had before. And the Shift key kind of shrinks these down, right? And then I think this is good. I'm going to go ahead and paste in another version of this. So I have my initial one too, and then I've got kind of my poofier one here at the bottom. Let's move that to the bottom here, and yeah, that's looking good. Now at this point, I have to determine, all right, what are these pieces going to be, right? So it looks like this here, this piece right here, upper arm is probably going to be a hard surface piece, right? So then I kind of go ahead and maybe smooth this out, and here I'm just going to go to my move brush and move it around. So what I have as a shadow behind it is the old one, and the old one also still has that piece on the chest. Let me go ahead and get rid of that. Okay. So I've got the old one kind of as a transparent piece behind it. And of course I can always use that. And I also have this piece right here that I'm starting to work on. Again, if you turn topological on, then you work on individual pieces, right? So here I'm just working on this elbow piece, and then here I'm just working on this upper arm piece. And so what I do here is just go ahead and determine what's going to be more hard surface and what's going to be more organic, right? So this elbow joint here is just screaming to be organic. And since again I have this as a 2x2 cube that I had before, I can easily go ahead and bend that elbow a little bit to give it that kind of elbowy bend. And then soon I'll go ahead and go into sculptress mode and just make that into more of a smooth organic piece, right? Another organic piece probably would be this joint over here, and I don't have a piece for it there, but that's fine. I can always kind of go into this one and use this piece here in its place, or I can always duplicate one of these pieces by masking everything and using the control key to create a duplicate of it. Okay, so here we go. And usually what I do is when I first start on a project, I do like a bunch of these, right? I do like five of them, maybe 10 of them really quickly. So I'm doing this one a little bit slower because I'm explaining everything, but I usually whip through, like do a bunch of these, maybe do like 10 or 15, sometimes even 20, and then I pick the ones that I like. So I kind of just go over to maybe this stage right here, and I go, okay, well, I'm happy with this. I'm just going to agree that this is kind of done at the stage, and then I go ahead and work on the next one. So that when I'm working with art directors and I'm working with people who are, if I'm kind of working on a project where they want to see a few of these and decide which one works best, then I can show them 10, and then I can go like, okay, well, which one of these is the one that you like? And usually 2 or 3 are preferred, and I'll take those 2 or 3 and develop them further, and then of course it all kind of channels down to 1. And the good news is that I've got all the other ones around, so that in the future, if there's another project that requires something similar, I can always use them. And if not, it's fine. Maybe I can use them for a personal project or whatever. Okay. Don't do concepts. I don't understand your question, Kirai. All right. So here we're getting to a point where, by the way, if you're working on something that has a transparent piece in the back, and you want to work on it and it's not letting you, you need to turn this ghost mode on, which allows you to do that. All right, so now I've kind of have some pieces working out for me here, and I want to take this to maybe secondary shapes, right? So I have to figure out, okay, what kind of joints are needed here. So we figured out that for the elbow, we kind of have like some sort of a joint that's covered with some sort of rubber or metal or cloth material, right? And this is going to be one piece right here. So I'm kind of going to get an interesting looking shape for it. And here, let me solo that out, see what it's looking like. It's looking pretty good. And by the way, if these colors are distracting, you can turn them off by just going into here and clicking up this color option. So now I'm basically just working in monochrome, even though those polygroups are still there. And I want them to be there because I will select them later on to isolate different pieces and make plates out of them. All right, I kind of am not liking this area over here. I kind of wish I added a whole other ZSphere or another part to it, but I'm just going to go ahead and kind of maybe assume that this is also going to be a piece that's going to be covered with cloth or rubber, and just make it into something more like this. And notice here that at some points you start breaking symmetry. So here, I don't know if you noticed, but this is not fully symmetric. So you can always go in and do a mirror and weld in X and get that symmetry back. All right, some sketches are something like that. I mean, if you do concepts before sculpt, I do sketch sometimes. I enjoy sketching, but lately I've just been doing everything in 3D because it's so much cooler, and there's so many things you can do here that you can't do when you're concepting in 2D, right? Because you can do a lot of iterations. When you're concepting in 2D, you're basically stuck to one angle. So I don't know. I go back and forth. I enjoy doing both. I think I get a bigger impact when I do 3D concepting. And I think it's something that a lot of concept designers currently are 2D concept designers. So there's a little bit of a, hesitancy because 2D people think they can't do 3D, and I don't agree with that. I've seen amazing 2D artists go to 3D, and I think whatever makes you more creative is what you should do. If 2D works, do 2D. If 3D works, do 3D. If recently I was on a project and the concept designer whipped out a cardboard and scissors and explained the concept better than anybody could have with anything else. So they took some board, foam core board, and a pair of scissors, and they explained the whole thing with that. So, whatever works, whatever gets your concept done in the best possible way. Some directors still prefer drawings, by the way. I just want to mention that. All right. All right. Okay, so Ghost of Christmas Future is putting in some emoticons that I don't understand. It looks like art, and then some sort of flying monkey. Right on. Love it. Okay, so now we've got kind of this going on here. Let's see. I'm still wanting to make those legs longer. I don't know why. So I'm just going to use the gizmo here and just kind of notice that I'm jumping back and forth between all the different tools in ZBrush. I started out with ZSpheres and now then moved to sculpting brushes, and soon I will be jumping into sculptress mode. By the way, save often. The other thing that's good about this is it's pretty lightweight. So you notice that save took almost no time. What I usually do is I just tap quick save here when I want to save it, and then I basically have an iteration of all the saves, and then I go to Lightbox and quick save and go to the one that I want. So now I've got all these ones, and then save that out, right? So it's kind of a really nice way to work where you just kind of tap quick save and save what you're working on. And ZBrush does it for you automatically, but it's also good for you to kind of figure out some times where you like what you're working on and you're happy with what you have, and then just kind of do a quick save on it. All right. See any questions on the Facebook side? No questions. All right, we got 17 people on, it looks like. Oh, wow. All right. Cool. All right, so now if I want to start kind of polishing these into better shapes, at any point, at this point, I like what I have here, so I'll go ahead and make a copy of it. So notice here I've got basically a history of what I'm doing. So I'll have a history going this way, right? So I can always go back in time this way. But also for things that I really like, I always duplicate it. So I've got that duplicate here. And I also rename these when I'm working because I like to stay organized. But right now I'm not going to take the time to do it. Okay, so now I still have this one here. I'm going to hide it. I don't need it anymore. And then just go into move and move brush and start kind of moving this around so I get better gestures. I'm going to turn topological off here because I'm actually going to be moving the whole model to get a look that I want. You use ZBrush with Keyshot? Oh, absolutely. I love Keyshot. I've been using Keyshot for a very long time, and when ZBrush made it affordable for everybody, it was a good day. Keyshot rocks. It's how rendering should be done. It's just very logical. I use other renderers as well. I like them, but Keyshot is always my first one to go to because it's really, really simple to use and you get amazing results. For presentations or try materials. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could even at this point take this thing into Keyshot and try different materials on it, see what it looks like. Okay, so this guy is looking pretty good right now. So let's go ahead and start, agreeing that this is where we're going to start from. And notice that I'm always going around the model, making sure it looks good from different angles. So this is kind of a weird thing going on here. Maybe I need to pop out that chest this way and bring this in. So now that I don't have topological on, I'm actually changing the entire gesture of the robot. Okay, so here I've got a pretty skeletal robot going, and I like it, but it's really thin. So what I'm going to do is duplicate it and start, again, using the inflate brush here to inflate parts more. So if you use a bigger brush, you inflate more. Topological is still on with it. And by the way, topological, I think, is in the brush menu somewhere. Let's see if I point to it, it should tell me. Topological masking. So yeah, it's under the brush menu here. So, excuse me, if you go to the brush menu here, and I think if you go into auto masking, topological, here it is. All right, so now I'm just basically making certain parts of it thicker. Maybe this upper arm could be a little bit thicker, not too much. It's not the direction I want to go. I definitely need something connecting these two up. All right. Okay, so now, now that I'm happy with this one, again, duplicate it. So again, I've got all this history of all these different subtools that I've created. And at some point, I go and clean them up. I don't usually have this many because it gets confusing after a while. Maybe give this a little bit more gesture over here. Like that. Cool. All right, Boston Dynamics, here I come. All right, maybe fan this one out. These will be the hands. All right, I'm liking this. So at this point, I'll go ahead and copy this. So I've got a clean copy of it and just go into this Polymesh 3D and click paste. So I've got a clean copy of the one that I really like. So if I mess it up, I can always go in and work on the, bring this one back in. All right, so now let's go ahead and start doing some cool stuff. So the first thing I do, again, is duplicate it one more time. So I've got the initial one, and then I've got the next one. And with this one, what I'm going to do is go ahead and Dynamesh it. Right, so go in here, Dynamesh. And with Dynamesh, I usually like to keep the resolution really low. I bump up the sub-projection to 1, turn off blur, and turn project on. Okay, so now I've got that. And then I just go ahead and Dynamesh. So when I do that, I get something like this, right? And all these pieces I think are fused together. They should be. What is going on here? Okay, I think they are. What brush? Oh, I've got the move brush. And do I have on underneath? Yeah, that's what's going on. Okay, so this is what I get. I basically get the same exact thing, but it's all fused together, right? So all those parts that were kind of overlapping, they're connected. Sometimes I get some weird shapes like this, but that's fine. All right, so now I've got kind of a piece by piece version of that model right here. And then I also have a version of it that's Dynameshed. So that Dynamesh part, yeah, I can cut and use these together. Hard surface modeling is really hard in ZBrush. I don't think so. I think it's really easy. I don't know why you would say that. I think hard surface modeling in other programs is pretty complex. I think in ZBrush it's pretty straightforward. Okay. So I've got this Dynamesh piece, and what I like to do now is go ahead and go in and just go to clay tubes and start playing around. So I'm in clay tubes. I'm using the clay tubes brush, and I turn sculptress mode on, which is again one of those miracle capabilities. I'm going to turn the kind of underneath skeleton off, and then just use sculptress here with a maybe smaller brush size. This is kind of acting funky. I wonder if I should unify it. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe the size is not where it needs to be. Let's see if it works now. Nope, same thing. So let's go back. All right, so I don't understand why Sculptress Pro is lagging a little bit. Let's go ahead and maybe turn these two off. Turn polyframe off. Let's see if this is working any better. Yeah, usually this operation, what I'm doing right now, kind of happens a little bit more smoother, so I don't know why it is not. Maybe I need to re-Dynamesh this one more time. Sometimes, maybe there's some inside polygons or whatever that's messing this up, so maybe what I'll do here is wait a few minutes here. Hopefully ZBrush doesn't crash, and if it does, I did do a quick save, so I'm good. Good time to have some tea. Oh, it's always complicated to keep edges? Not really, because you can always re-topologize after. All right, I think ZBrush is kind of giving up the ghost here. Oh no, it's back. Yes, thank you. Yeah, see what's happening here, which is really kind of weird. Do I have topological on? No, I don't. So yeah, this should be, I should be just kind of smoothly sculpting on this. But yeah, this is the best way to start. I mean, I don't know. I think preference is preference, right? All right, here I'm kind of very slowly adding some bulk to the shape. I notice I've got some hard surfaces here, but I'm basically, I can always cut up this to be different shapes later on. Yeah, I don't know why this is not as responsive as it usually is. So in the interest of time, I'm going to copy this, paste it into another subtool here. Delete this one. All right, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and let's unify this. Okay, and let's see if this is any faster. No, it's still pretty slow. Okay, I think I know what's going on. I think there are some polygons inside that are messing it up. So I know how to fix that. And the way to do it is to simplify the geometry. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and ZRemesh this a little bit. So go ahead and I'm going to go to half here and just ZRemesh it. And what that'll do is it'll decrease the number of polygons, and then I'll Dynamesh it again. Hopefully that'll work better. So that's progressing here. I'll go ahead and look at some other comments here. This is the best way to start. Yeah, Kirai, you should look at some of the amazing hard surface stuff that people do in ZBrush. Like look at Furio Tedeschi's work. He does some amazing hard surface stuff in ZBrush. Look at Daytoner. Daniel's work is really amazing in ZBrush. There's some amazing ZBrush artists that do really cool hard surface stuff. And actually go to my website too, Kermaco.com. Should let me bring that up for you guys, and I'll show you some of the things that I did. One of the mechs that I did it 100% in ZBrush. And this one right here, the Mantis mech, this was done 100% in ZBrush. So, and this was doing the beta testing of 2018. Or was it even, I think it might even have been the one before 2018, 4R8. So this entire thing was done in ZBrush. You can see some of the development here. So you can see how I started really simply, just like I'm starting now, and just made these pieces piece by piece to get it to be where it is. And if you go to my Instagram, I actually have a lot more pictures of this mech on there. All right, so back to ZBrush. Wow, okay, so see, that's kind of what the issue was, is that it's a lot of polygons. So I'm going to zero mesh that again with half on, so it even simplifies it more. And progressively, the zero mesh progress will take less time. All right, let's see here if there are any questions on Facebook. I don't see any. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Is my volume okay? Is it too low, too high? All right, so the question is, in what amount of time someone that never modeled anything can learn to do a AAA character in ZBrush? It's so funny. I've watched some other streams. Okay, good. Thank you for RSL Master for the volume thing. Yeah, that's a question that everybody gets. And I think the reason why everybody gets that question is because when you're watching this and you're watching all the streamers and the people that are working in ZBrush do their work really fast, you can what happens is that people get really frustrated because when they start using ZBrush, they can't get those same results, right? So you can't get those same results, so it's really frustrating for you. So your question is, when can I get that good? And the answer varies. It really varies from person to person. And it also varies on how much time you spend on the program. So, if you spend an hour a day, and maybe spend part of that hour learning a new capability or something new in ZBrush. Yeah, see, now it's kind of a little bit better than it was before, but it's still kind of weird. And I don't know if I have certain settings not correct here. Here we go. Maybe I need a bigger brush size. That's the problem. Okay, so what happens is that as you spend more time on it, you get better and better and better. And there will be a point after which you will know that you've kind of crossed a threshold. You've crossed a point where you are a lot better than you were before, and then it just keeps getting better from that point on. So so I can't really give you an exact amount of time. For me, that time frame was maybe about a year and a half, 2 years of working with ZBrush. And here's the other thing that's kind of interesting. It's not just ZBrush that you need to worry about, it's other things. So for me, understanding how planes work when you're doing a drawing. So I looked at Loomis's books and understood how planes worked. And that really helped me. So there's a lot of soft skills too. It's not just ZBrush, but it's also like, how good of an artist are you? Can you make a AAA character? Do you have the kind of the knowledge of what makes a AAA character, and what are the things that make it the way you want it to be? So it's not just ZBrush. It's also fundamentals that you need to know, and people ask me, because I teach in colleges, people ask me like, well, why do you need to go to college? Can't I just learn everything from streams? And the answer is no, you can't, because there are fundamentals that you need to know. Now, you can teach yourself those fundamentals, but you will definitely learn them better if you are in a kind of an academic environment. Okay, so now I'm kind of, using different brushes here, and I don't know why my brushes are just not as effective as they need to be. I don't know if, let me try this trick one more time. Yeah, but see now I'm basically changing. Go back to clay tubes here and add some more. All right, this is really weird. So what I'm going to do is maybe save my project and restart ZBrush. So here I'm just going to do a quick save. Notice here it's taking a little bit more time, but still not that much time, even though with this complex model I don't really have that much going on. So I'm just going to go ahead and close ZBrush out and then restart it. And while that's happening, I can answer some questions for you guys. All right, you work in the game industry. Uptime. Pixelizing has been live for 59 minutes and 2 seconds. Okay. Do I work in the game industry? I've done projects for the game industry. I don't exclusively work in one industry. I mean, I work for the entertainment industry, but I've done some projects for games. I've done some projects for films. I've done some projects for TV, advertising. I've done projects for VR, for AR. Whenever somebody needs something done, if it's something that is within my capability, I'd love to help out. All right, so ZBrush is back up. Just need to bring it over. Maximize it. So see, now I can just go to quick save here and just bring in the last thing I worked on, which I think is this one. Let's see, what other questions you have? There's 2 sculpt-offs happen at ZBrush Summit, 8 sculpt things, and then one of the sculpts of his hard surface. It is uploaded to YouTube. Yep, Ghost of Christmas Future, you're right. So yeah, that's true. And I was one of them. So what happens is that Pixelogic has the ZBrush Summit, which is one of the most amazing events you can go to. If you can go in person, definitely do. You meet some amazing people and see some amazing presentations, and they have a really neat party too and a good gallery show. So definitely worthwhile. And what happens at these things is, 12 artists compete in each category. So 12 compete in hard surface and 12 compete in organic, and they do some amazing stuff, and you can go to the Pixelogic website and see it. And I was fortunate to compete twice. One time I did really well. I got 3rd place, and the second time I didn't do so well. It was kind of weird because they asked me to come in towards the end. I didn't have good prep time, and I had some other things happening in my life which didn't make me as sharp as I could have been on it, but it was still fun. It was still fun to participate, and I'll show you guys the thing that I made. I don't know if you've seen it, but for the sculpt off, I had it's basically 3 hours. So you basically are working in 3 hours, and it's 3 hours of really fast work, and this was my result. So I basically made this in 3 hours. What's funny is that I wasn't going to do a lion. So the goal was to do a mechanical animal, and my goal wasn't to do a lion. My goal was to do an eagle. When I practiced to do this eagle, but when I sat down, I kind of felt like doing a lion. So this is the one I came up with, and I used a lot of kit bashing here, which we're also going to do in these streams. So make sure to log in into the future ones that I do so you can see how to kit bash as well. So, I mean, initially I start like this to get the general shape. Here we go. Now this is exactly the way I want to work. I don't know what was happening before, but now we are super happy with what's going on. Okay, so yeah, it's amazing to see some of the results. And Furio has won 3 of those sculpt offs in a row because he just does amazing stuff every time. I don't know how he does it. He's got some magic somewhere. But he made some amazing mechs. So if you think ZBrush is not good for hard surface, go look at the things he did at the ZBrush Summit, which are amazing, and also some of his other work. Fear is definitely one of my favorite artists. All right, so here we go. Okay, give or take 2 or 3 minutes. It's an hour or so. How long? Oh, good question. I've been streaming for about an hour. By the way, if you want to go watch this later on, they're going to save it, and it's going to be available in the. If you go to ZBrush Live, you can go ahead and see it then. It looks like we got a little bit of a hole there. Easy enough to fix up. You just go to Modify Topology here under Geometry, and then just close holes, and that's fixed. Right, and this looks really thin over here. So if this robot was coming after me and I had to shoot it, I'd probably shoot it over here because that'd break it in half, and goodbye. All right, so you can see now that I'm kind of going and looking at doing the same shape, the same gestures, but with organic pieces. So now I'm adding organic pieces to this. And again, I still have that initial model that I had that I could bring in and use pieces from. And I can also peel off pieces from this one if I want to. Right, and then if I need to pose it, I can always go in and pose that ZSphere rig that I had before, right? So all those things that I did can still be used. All right, so here's an interesting thing that happens where this is collapsed in. And if that happens, that's because backface mask isn't on. I can turn it on, or I can just fix it by using inflate here. I'll just inflate this up, do this. And at this point, I think I can just Dynamesh this thing. I'm losing some of the shape that I had, but I can re-add that easily. All right, I'm a programmer, but I'd like to make games on my own with decent art. Do you think it's possible for someone to be able to model, rig, texture, animate character alone? No, I don't. Honestly, I think if you try to do everything yourself, you're going to not do the best of everything unless you've got a lot of time and you have some magic capabilities. I think it's best to let the artist do the art. You can hire them. There are plenty of amazing artists around, and have them do the art for you, and then you can focus on some of the other technical things. If you're a good programmer, that's a really amazing skill to have. And so you should focus on making the game an amazing game and let the artists focus on making the art amazing pieces. That said, I know some artists that are now programming as well. So they're going in and making games. One of my other favorite artists, Vitaly Bulgarov, is also working on a game now. So he's just an amazing artist, like just really kind of super artist, and he is also working on a game. And I don't know if he's doing the programming himself or if he's working with people, but yeah. So if you want to do multiple roles, why not? It's just a matter of time and a matter of how much, how amazing your work can be in a shorter period of time as you have. All right, so it's kind of interesting thing going on back here. Let's go ahead and maybe give him a little bit more of a, I kind of like that shape over there, so I'm going to keep it like so. So it's always also good to move around your model. So notice here I kind of worked on the chest a bit. Now I'm moving over to where the legs are. And maybe I kind of like the way the top part of the legs are, so I'm not really going to do much changing around there. I might just kind of cut this piece or use panel loops to use it. But I have to figure out what to do with the knee here. So let's go ahead and kind of, maybe I'll give it a softer knee here. Sculptress mode is just so nice. Kind of using all the powerful capabilities of ZBrush together, you get some really fun results. All right, let's take a look at the chat here. Still programmer, anything on Facebook? Looks like not. Okay. I wish there was a magic button you could press like in the Matrix and you could just be an amazing artist, but there isn't. You just have to put in the time. And the only way you do that is if you really like it. If you don't enjoy it, then it's not going to happen. And if you do enjoy it, then like right now, for example, this is like one of the funnest times for me, is just having this block of 2 hours to work on this. All right, so if you're just joining, let's kind of do, what time is it? 8:17. Let's do kind of a quick revision of what we've done so far. If you're just joining, welcome aboard. I think, wow, we're at 46 people. So what we did is we started out with a guy like this. Wow, that looks interesting too. So this could be like a suit the guy could wear. That turned out really neat. I might actually do this as a variant. So the guy kind of is inside the suit, and then this mech piece is on top, and he just walks around and like it's kind of an exosuit. So we start out with the guy like this, and then we basically started a ZSphere rig. And with the ZSphere rig, what we did is we used these connectors as just a piece like this. So we just used this piece as the connector for the ZSpheres and came up with kind of a quick ZSphere character that looks like that, right? And then after that, we go ahead and give it a bit of a gesture. So we went from like a really stick figure looking thing like this to something with more gesture that looks like that. And then we kind of took that ZSphere rig and made an adaptive skin out of it, just really simple pieces. And then we inflated some of the parts to get a little bit of more of an interesting shape, and then took that into, I guess we added more bulk to it, and then more bulk to it. So here, see, I've got a history of everything. And then we did this, and then we Dynameshed it, and then zero meshed it, and now we're using sculptress mode sculpting to go ahead and kind of bring out some of the features. Just again, I'm just working on secondary shapes right now. So the primary shapes were here. So this is the primary shape of the robot. So if I was looking at my robot in here, I'll just go ahead and make a silhouette out of it. So if I was looking at him from far away, so if this was in a game, like he was that far away, I kind of would know what that robot is, right? So it's good to kind of make sure your silhouette works. And and then after that, what we did is we went ahead and just kind of made it into a Dynameshed it, and then zero meshed it, just to kind of get more kind of a better polygon count. And now I'm just going out and figuring out some good features for him. So this chest piece is kind of interesting. I haven't really seen too many robots have this kind of chest piece. Kind of be like this. Usually, it almost looks like it's reversed. Kind of looks like a chicken almost. But I kind of have to get something interesting happening with this. So I've got enough polygons here where I can even go ahead and start poly painting it too. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off polyframe here. And then I'm going to start going in and just using another layer of work where I'm just going to paint. And let's go ahead and fill this object with white, and then let's go ahead and pick another color, like maybe orange. And I'll start painting my model to kind of start figuring out where the pieces are. So I'm using all these other capabilities together that ZBrush has, just to kind of get a good understanding of, so maybe this will be like a piece like this. And it goes around. It's good to kind of understand how mechanical things work. And the good news is with Sculptress Pro, I've got enough geometry in there to get a nice, decent color thing going. So this comes around like that. So now I've kind of ironed out, maybe this is going to be a piece that kind of is going to be singled out on its own. It's going to be this big chest piece, like so. And then maybe this part is going to be something else. So again, I'll just go ahead and choose a different color. Maybe there's something underneath over here. So color kind of brings out different aspects. So this chest piece now is going to be coming over this way. Maybe this is a different piece too. And by the way, for those of you that didn't see how it changed the color, you basically, if you click on your color swatch here and just drag, your cursor becomes pick, and then whatever you choose, like if I want this brown color again, I just move over to here. I've got that brown color, and I can maybe paint this part that brown color. And if I want to pick this orange again, I just click here, drag, pick, and now I'm painting the orange color. So nice and convenient, so fast. When I first started using ZBrush, I came from the Microsoft world, so the interface was really foreign to me. But um, as I use it more, I think, the interface is just meant for people to get their job done. Okay. All right, so color is looking good at this point. It's starting to really come together, and let's go ahead and start, maybe this part of here is orange too. Or maybe this whole thing is malleable, right? So maybe this whole thing is that dark color. So this whole thing is kind of a malleable piece. So this is kind of, inside has a bunch of different interesting high-tech joints, and this whole thing kind of bends in different directions. And at this point, like I can always jump back into my move brush and then start messing with the gesture some more. If I don't like that kind of look, maybe I can push the chest out a bit, maybe push that back. So you notice here that I'm kind of working organically, but on a hard surface model. And then you'll see how I can kind of use these pieces. And instead of getting these kind of softer looks to them, I can generate really hard surface looking pieces from them. So this is kind of a hard one to negotiate, this angle over here that I've picked. So I'm going to really try and figure out a good way to make this pop. All right, I had some questions here. So quadruped skeleton, like a scapula, is further off the ribs. Yep, it does. And maybe this thing can go into quadruped mode. Why not? So with that mech that I did earlier that I showed you guys, this one, right? So this one right here, so I had two configurations for it. I had a configuration, so this is kind of in a low gravity situation. This guy would be running in a low gravity situation. So like on a planet that has low gravity, these long legs would make it run really fast, right? So assume that it's not going to be heavy in that atmosphere, but then it's got these heavy guns, and if it fires its guns, even though it's not a heavy atmosphere, it could tip over, right? So logically, it needs a more stable setting. So what I did is I made the split legs, so these are two different pieces and they open up, right? So it goes from a biped to a quadruped. So maybe we can do something with this guy too. Maybe it could become a quadruped as well. Yeah, I think the problem with this shape is that this should be the back part. This looks more like a back than a front. So we can easily fix that by masking the arms out. Let me go ahead and pick mask less over here. Oops. And mask these arms like that. And I'll mask everything else too, and just work on that problem area. Again, since it's so light at this point, I can really go ahead and experiment. And this is the kind of thing where if you're working in 2D, if you're doing concept design in 2D, this kind of stuff is really hard to do because you got to do a whole new drawing now, right? But in ZBrush, you don't. You just go, I don't like that. I'm going to move this back. Let's see if that works better. It's funny, there's like a little bit masked over here. I need to unmask. All right, move this back. That's looking a little bit better, but this kind of back part here is what's really the challenge. What is the advantage of ZBrush over another software like Blender, Maya, 3ds Max? Is ZBrush better to get characters and Blender to get props? I use all those programs. I used 3ds Max a long time ago. I still use Maya a lot, and but Maya's been going down in usage. So I used to use Maya more than I used ZBrush, but now I use 80% of my time. 80 to 90% is ZBrush. The rest is Maya. I'm learning Blender, and it's got some really interesting stuff. I think the advantage of ZBrush is that you can do all these things that I showed you, which you cannot do in Maya, you cannot do in Blender. Blender does have some sculpting capabilities, but I don't think you can do a lot of things I'm doing here. So I would say the advantage of ZBrush is that you can do a lot of things with it. I always tell my students that if I am on a deserted island and I can only have one software package, to do my work, it would be ZBrush, because I can do a lot in ZBrush. I can do most everything I do in ZBrush, where in Blender, again, I shouldn't talk about Blender as much because I just started using it, but like in Maya, there's a lot of things I can't do that I'm doing here, for sure. Okay. Again, let me look at the silhouette. I'm liking this a little bit better than what I had before. This part is really thin, so I'll bulk it up by using the inflate brush. Like so, and then... So I don't usually stream, like this is my first time streaming, so thank you everybody who's on, my first stream ever. But my kids watch streams all the time. They watch like all sorts of gaming streams and everything like that. So I asked them, like, what makes a good stream? So what I'm going to do after I finish this, I'm going to have them watch it and give me critique. And if you guys have better ideas too of things that I can do better, please let me know. I want to make sure that I am maximizing your time. During the stream process, I'm also going to, this is what I really like about Sculptress mode too, is like you can separate pieces out like that. During this time frame, I'm probably going to make some things available, like kit bash brushes and whatnot on Gumroad, for some of them for maybe nothing, and some of them probably for free. So if you guys keep tuning in, you can see them, or maybe watch the videos afterwards. You can get those pieces. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on what I can do to make this stream better, please, by all means, let me know. And if it's perfect, you don't have to let me know. All right. So here I've kind of gotten a little, I've been working, see, this is the thing this is the pitfall you don't want to fall into. I've been working on this chest for so long that I'm just kind of moving it back and forth and back and forth. So what I need to do is kind of start working on something else. So at this point, I'm just going to do one thing, which is do this. And then move on to another part. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to maybe this part right here, which kind of looks interesting. All right, Erisbrat, thank you. ZBrush stream, but I'm enjoying watching your technique. Where are you teaching? I teach at two schools. I teach at Art Center, and I teach at Otis College of Art and Design. And I used to teach online courses at CG Society, but I haven't been. I've done tutorials for Gnomon, and I might be teaching there as well. I'm actually working on my second Gnomon DVD. I've written articles in 3D Artist magazine and also in Imagine Effects. So I enjoy teaching a lot because I see what my students do at the end of the class, and it's always very satisfactory to see people live up to their potential and do amazing work. All right, so you see how this is not hard surface? So this is very organic looking. So I just use H polish, and then all of a sudden it's hard surface, right? I just find some good planes in here. And notice I'm not going into detail at all. I notice one of the pitfalls of artists is they go into detail really fast. Like they go, okay, yeah, I like this. So here, maybe I'll just go ahead and put in a little divot here or whatever. I'm not. I'm just going to be working on this model a lot until I like the kind of the general shapes that it has. And then once I'm happy with that is when I start adding the details. And I'll be adding a lot of details, but for now, I just want to make it work kind of as an overall shape. All right, the most interesting part seems like it's coming up. The basic shapes, rough sketch is something a number of artists do, but taking it from there to sharp facets, wires, hoses, etc. is rarer. Yeah, I will definitely take, we will have wires, we will have facets, we will have screws, we'll have all that good stuff. I'm trying to not have guns. I'll see if I can resist for this guy. Maybe this guy is like something useful, like he's a hospital robot or a firefighter robot or a, let's see, lifeguard robot or something, useful instead of a gun-toting one. I'll do one with guns later. You can't help it. You know, it's really hard for me not to want to put cut lines. Like it's hard for me not to do one of these things. Let me turn coloring off here. Like it's hard for me not to do this at this point. Like it's hard for me not to go like, ooh, yeah, you know, maybe I'll put a cut line here, put a cut line there, blah, 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 you know, maybe put one here. You know, it's hard for me not to do this. It's hard for me not to do this. And I will resist it as much as I can and just kind of focus on the basic shapes. All right. Okay, I'm kind of liking how this is coming out so far. The weird thing here is like, how does this work, right? From a mechanical perspective, like, you know, what kind of underneath skeleton needs to come in here to make this work? I mean, I kind of like the way it looks, but it's going to be interesting to see how I make this function. And by the way, one of the things I always do, and I found in a lot of artists, like there's some really amazing artists that make amazing mechs, but they won't function, they won't work. So like I always wonder, like, how is this thing going to work? How is it going to run? Will the mechanics of it really work? And that's kind of important because our suspension of disbelief, you know, I mean, I can make something look gnarly and cool, but our suspension of disbelief wants to see things work in some way or form. So I always think about that. I always think like, okay, well, what kind of joint is in here? What kind of motor would make this run? Um, what kind of mechanics are needed inside this to make it function? And I'm seeing since this thing has long legs, it's going to run fast. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and do some changes here to those legs. I'm going to mask everything else like so, and then amazing gizmo, and move that around, see if I can get something more logical. All right, let's see, some people are saying stuff. Do you use any parametric modeling CAD programs? I found ZBrush hard to create curvy, hard surface shapes. I use Moi 3D. It's not parametric, but I use Moi 3D and I love it. It's good. I might bring some Moi pieces into here at some point. But I can't start in Moi. Like if I start in Moi, it takes me forever to get something going. Like if I took this thing into Moi and started modeling on top of it, it would work. But I can't start in Moi and make something like this. It's just I've tried. It's not possible. I've used Fusion 360. I like that too. And I see some artists starting to use SolidWorks. I think that's a little bit of a price-wise, it's pretty expensive. I don't know if I can afford that. Moi is still pretty good. Fusion is not bad. You can subscribe. All right, let's see. Any questions on ZBrush? Sculpt Pro is off. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. All right. Yep, I'm liking these legs more, and I can totally see how there could be like a ball joint over here and maybe like some sort of other thing. This is kind of moving forward too much, so I'm going to go ahead and mask it, invert that mask, and move these back like so. One of the things that's nice about masking is you can kind of taper it, so it's not so harsh. I'm going to move this down to here and move that back like maybe about there. There we go. Okay, so Sculptress Pro, somebody says Sculptress Pro is off, and it is off when I go to Move Brush, because the Move Brush does not work with Sculptress Pro. If I want to do moving with Sculptress Pro, I use the snake hook brushes, which work better. All right, so let's give this more of a curve like that. I think maybe more like this, and bring this more in. All right. How are we doing on time? We're getting close. So today basically is going to be more of this type of work. So I'm basically just going to leave this be until my next stream and then take it from where I left it into its next stages. I might cut this foot off and put something else in its place, but for now. So the kind of things that you're getting, see this kind of wobbly thing that you get with ZBrush. A good way to fix that is you just kind of go into your polyframe here, and notice I've got all this geometry. I don't really need all this geometry right now, so I can just zero mesh this thing. Oh, draw menu decided to come up. Get rid of it. Don't need the texture menu either. Here we go. Let's go ahead and go to geometry, zero mesh. All right. All right, so notice here that's a lot of detail. I don't need that. I'll just zero mesh it again. All right, Corey, thanks for tuning in. Definitely, I don't know if I'm I'm probably gonna stop at 9. I was planning on going further, but I'm just coming off of a cold, so feeling a little bit tired. So you notice here that I've got that general shape again, and but I don't have a lot of that harsh detail that I had before, which is fine. Another thing I could do is I could go back to when I did have it, so I can take this and make a copy of it. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. So I've got a copy of it, and then I'll go ahead and re-zero mesh this. It took very little time. Back down a couple of times. First time always takes longer because it's kind of dealing with all this mess here. Do it one more time. This one is not going to take as long. And you can kind of see that other one underneath it. Right, and so if I want those details, but I want it on this level of model because it's softer, what I can do is I can just go ahead and project that old one onto the new one. So I'll just go ahead and say project. Always yes, project, project, project. And so now I've got that kind of, I've got this geometry, but I've got the level of detail that I had before. Maybe not as much, but I don't really need it. Because again, I'm probably going to retopologize and add panels to this. Right now I'm just kind of working on getting the gesture right. Okay, so we are, anybody new tuning in? We're at 43 people. Ghost of Christmas Future, sure. Happy to stream. Happy to do whatever I can to share my knowledge and also let people know how amazing ZBrush is. All right. So again, notice I've got this history of all these different models that I've worked on so far. And I can go back at any point in time. It's like a maze, right? Like if something leads me to a dead end, I can always go back to where things were working and then make things work. All right. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking I really like the gestures that I have. I might do something with the feet here that's a little bit different. So a good way to cut pieces off is to use the clip tools. So, or I'm sorry, not clip tools, but the, let's see, trim tools, right? So I'm going to go to trim here. And if I don't want that, let me turn perspective off. If I don't want that foot here, I can just get rid of it. Right. And I'm just going to Dynamesh this real quick. And then I can add a separate piece for the foot later. I can just go back up to my initial robot and then add the piece from there if I want to, or I can just go ahead and use the move brush, oops, and pull this out. No, I think the better thing to do is what I was going to do earlier. Now what's nice is, did it give me a new polygroup in here? Let's see. Maybe not. All right, so I'll just add that piece later. All right, and for the hands, right now I've got kind of these claws, but later on I'll add full-on hands. One of a better way to, I can make a hand using ZSpheres pretty easily and just append it to here. But for now, I'm kind of liking this. It looks like almost like an ant of sorts. And the other thing I'm kind of thinking about is maybe this thing collapses up. So here I'm just going to make a duplicate of it and try figuring out how would it collapse up. So maybe this thing collapses up into a briefcase, and then a fireman goes into a scenario and just puts the briefcase down, presses a button, and this robot comes out of it and goes ahead and maybe rescues somebody from a burning fire, or rescues, I don't know. I still haven't figured the function of this. It's definitely not going to be something that shoots. It's going to be some sort of a utility robot, maybe construction robot, like they bring it to a construction site as a briefcase, press a button, and it maybe goes ahead and builds stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I'm really digging the gesture of this thing. I think it's kind of coming along really well. All right, so now that I've got this, I want to go ahead and go back to where I had that previous skeleton, which I think was this one right here. So I'm going to move that one down and turn it on. So here we are. We have the two pieces. So you can see how I've got my initial robot, this one, and I've got this one that is more of the Dynamesh pieces. And so I've got, different pieces that I can use as kind of panels on that robot. Like I've got this piece for the foot, and I don't think this thing is connected, so I can break off these pieces and use them. Or I can delete pieces that I want. So here, with this one, maybe I don't want these knees, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go into ZBrush and go ahead and say delete island, and I don't want these knees, so these are gone. Here I don't want the elbow because I'm just going to use this kind of softer elbow here. I like this piece in the back. I like that. I kind of like the head, the mechanical head, better than I like the organic head, so I'll just go ahead and go here and delete the organic head, and hopefully, I don't know if that's connected here. Nope, it is connected, so I need to do the clip thing, so I'm just going to trim it off like so. Right, so I like this mechanical piece better, but I like the organic neck more, so I'm going to use that. Maybe bring that piece back, maybe keep this part of it, but get rid of that top part. Right, so now I'm mixing the organic and the kind of mechanical together. I like how this is working out. Maybe there's an inside piece. I don't need the organic hand, so I'm going to clip that off. Let's see, do I have symmetry on? I do. Go into solo mode here. And yeah, this thing goes all the way through. Yep, it does. All right, so a better way to do this would probably be to do the trim circle and just do it this way and this way. Actually, all right, and now bring these back. All right, so let's see, we have some questions. There, way to equalize geometry so I can apply texture on it better. Absolutely, yeah. The way to do that is to, if you want to equalize the geometry, so the question is, how do you equalize geometry, or how can you get kind of more uniform geometry? And the best way to do it, and I'll do it with this organic piece here. So if I want to equalize this guy, first off, let me mirror and weld it so I have symmetrical shapes. And then here's the other thing that I really like to do, which is use the sculptress mode with shift to get kind of rid of that little area over there, that nub. And I probably can do that up here too. And then do this again. So if I wanted to put textures on here, right now it's like all over the place. What I would do is just ZRemesh it, right? So I'm just going to duplicate this, ZRemesh it. Okay, so that's going to take a few minutes, not too long. All right. It's getting there. Okay, so now I've got this kind of in a ZRemeshed form, which is better topology, but it's still a little too dense. So what I'm going to do is ZRemesh it again. so I get less geometry. The first ones take a little bit longer, the next one takes less, and the next one takes less because I'm going to have less geometry to deal with. So here, this one's less. One more time, and this one, again, is going to take less time. All right, oops, I don't want to have sculptors mode on. All right, so now I've got this, right? And then if I want to, now it's equalized, right? So all the polygons have the same shape. And let me choose a different color here. Right, all these polygons have the same shape, and if I paint on this, it's not going to work too well because it's not divided. So I can either use UV master and get UVs out of it, or I can divide it a couple of times here, and it will evenly divide. And once I do that, if I want to paint textures on it, I can actually, let me go ahead and paint a texture on it. So let's say I go ahead and put, let's say, I don't know what's a good one here, maybe this one, and turn polyframe off. Actually, turn this off, go to paint. And let's say I'm going to paint with this texture. And let's go ahead and spray it on. So you can see I'm evenly applying that texture to the model. It applies really nicely. Right, let's pick something else here. Maybe, no, that's not a good texture. How about this one here? And I can even drag these on, like if I want that specific shape. And you can see it's nice and even. It's a little blurry because I need more subdivision levels. So I can divide it one more time, and now I get better. Divide it one more time, I get even better than that. Right, so you get some really nice textures on it. All right, so this was kind of a little bit of a distraction. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and go back to where we were. Hopefully, Ramses, that answers your question. We'll go back to what we had before, this model here, and then start working on it. Some more. I'm really liking the organic shape of this. Let's add the other one. So now we've got the metallic pieces as well as the other ones. The legs are a little bit off, but I can fix that. So I need to fix that with this one. And just again, since it's very low geometry, I can very easily manipulate these and move them into place. I've got my foot back. I've got click solo on, which is kind of a nice thing to do. And I'm going to turn topological on, so I just am moving one piece at a time. Like maybe this one over to here. All right, so you can see here, it's kind of, these pieces are going to go over what's there. And turn transparency off here, I can see inside. All right, we're looking good. With this guy, yep, cool, cool, cool. All right, and then one of the sessions I'll do, I'll go ahead and make that insert mesh brush. So we'll make parts. So all we'll do is make like pistons and all sorts of stuff that are going to go in here. Maybe make some cables, and I'll be giving that away on Gumroad to you guys. So one of the sessions is just going to be like we're making little parts, and I will do them exactly the same way I did with this one, where I start with big kind of shapes, and then I'll be doing hard surface modeling for those parts as well. All right, I am totally digging how this guy came out. Not bad. And again, this is kind of, you saw how many iterations I went through to get to here, right? And so once I get it to work this way, afterwards when I load it into key shot, when I start working on it more, you will see that it will come together a lot better, right? Because I kind of got the general shape of it to work first, and then I'll get the rest of it to work after. And it will, because if the general shape works, pardon me, everything else comes together afterwards. All right, I think we're kind of getting close to time here. It's 8:52, so I'll take some last questions. And then I think my schedule is going to be Tuesday nights. And depending on how much work I have, I'd like, it'll be nice if I can do every week, but I'm probably going to do every other week as of now, but I don't know yet. I've not determined that. Depends on how many classes I pick up. I know I have 2 classes at Otis in the spring, and I don't know if I'm going to be teaching at Art Center yet. It's still to be determined for next semester, and I don't know what kind of projects I'm going to get. So if I have the time, I do this anyway, so I'd be kind of, I'd be doing this on my own. So it's better if I'm doing streaming, and if I answer a few questions here and there, that's good. But yeah, so tune in, folks. Tuesday nights. Hopefully that works for you. And if you can't tune in, they'll be recorded. You can't ask questions, but you can watch what I did and follow along, and then maybe come in the next time and ask me a question. All right, so let's see. Thanks for the stream, all right. Hey, you bet, man. Or you bet person. And yeah, so we will see you folks. I guess I got 7 more minutes. I can tweak this guy a little bit more. If you have last minute questions, please ask them. All right. So if anybody here an experienced ZBrush user? Anybody here kind of already knows ZBrush well? Hopefully I'm showing you some stuff that are useful to you as well. All right. Any questions on Facebook? No. And no questions here. Yeah, at some point I'm going to cut this one up to different pieces, and then so, and assemble them into this. So together they will form the final robot that we're going to make. Hey, VFX Forge, thanks, man. Cheers. I don't know why I'm saying man. I don't know. On the internet, you could be a bot. I don't know. All right, so I think I'm going to call it a night. Again, thanks everybody for joining. And oh, question. What do you think about Sculptris Pro Tool in ZBrush 2000? Oh, I think it's the best thing. I've been using it. I don't know if you saw. I used it to make this part of the robot. It's like, every time a new version of ZBrush comes out, there's something new and amazing. And Sculptris Pro just kind of blew my mind. I mean, I'm a hard surface modeler, and I use Sculptris Pro all the time because it really, really helps with a lot of kind of shapes that I'm trying to get. And I used to Dynamesh a lot, but now with Sculptris Pro, it's just kind of, again, it's like magic. Every time a new thing comes out in ZBrush, it's like a new magical thing. What was there anything specific you wanted to know about Sculptris Pro? Because it really, it really makes a huge difference. Like for example, here, if I want to just add more polygons, ooh, a little bit of gouge there. Let's inflate that thing out. See, for example, if I didn't have Sculptris Pro, it would have caused that issue. But since I have Sculptris Pro, it will not cause that issue. So now it's not going to go ahead and bring in that. I guess it is. I need to turn back face masking on. And I have that in my... Actually, back face mask doesn't work with Sculptris Pro. Doesn't work yet. It will at some point, I'm sure. But I can just, do more subtle moves instead of using a bigger brush. But yeah, Sculptris Pro has definitely kind of made my workflow a lot better. I thought Dynamesh and ZBrush were amazing. And then they throw in Sculptris Pro. It's just like, come on. And, right, here we go. Okay. If there are no more questions, good night, folks. Thank you for joining. If you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Pixelogic channel. They're amazing streamers, and it's always fun to watch. Same thing with Twitch and Facebook. So I'll be seeing you folks hopefully again next time. Have a good night, everybody.